My name was Amir. I was a judge in Medina, revered and respected once, a pillar of my community. At 38, I cloaked myself in righteousness, wielding the power to decide fates and dispense justice. But deep within, a tempest raged, a darkness that would not be silenced. On the surface, I was a man of faith, yet inside I felt an unshakable void, a chasm of doubt that gnawed at my soul during each prayer. Then came the day I crossed over, the day my body fell, and my spirit soared into the abyss of the unknown. In the depths of that shadow, I was enveloped by a darkness that pressed against me. It was there, amidst the silence, that Jesus spoke my name. His voice cut through the haze like a beacon, urging me toward a truth I had never been taught, a truth that illuminated not only my path, but unveiled the chains binding my very existence. The revelation was staggering. It wasn't just about my faith, it was about a systemic blindness, a spiritual war that extended far beyond what I could comprehend. I realized that the old world I clung to, the doctrines I followed with fervor, were part of a façade, a grand illusion designed to keep me from true freedom. And in that instant of transcendence, I understood I was not simply questioning Islam. I was confronting a power structure that sought to manipulate humanity's deepest yearnings for connection and understanding. Returning to my life felt like stepping into a prison. My family turned against me. My community labeled me a heretic. The judgment was harsh, but the terms of my awakening were more critical. I was now on a quest for spiritual truth, digging beneath the surface of ignorance that had shrouded my upbringing. The draw of the old life tugged at me, granting me visions of comfort and acceptance, but my spirit had tasted the light, and I knew there was no going back. In the days that followed, I scoured the depths of the internet in secret, seeking the very name I once feared, Jesus. There, in the shadows, I discovered others who had walked this treacherous path. Sharing their testimonies of faith and liberation, I found a clandestine community that embraced me, allowing me to shed my fears, engage in authentic prayer, and even partake in a hidden baptism, an act that felt more like home than I had ever known. My journey transformed into a mission, a calling to illuminate the truth for others still ensnared in darkness. It was time to speak out, to break the silence that had chained me for so long. Yet, as I stepped into this new purpose, I understood the very real dangers that lay ahead. Leaving behind my former identity meant embracing uncertainty, but I was determined, driven by the knowledge that in sharing my story, I could help free others wandering in their own shadows. Before we dive deeper, I invite you to share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Your voice matters in this community. And if you feel the weight of truth tugging at your heart, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. If you love Jesus and desire to hear more revelations, don't miss out. We are just getting started on this transformative journey. Living in Medina, a city steeped in Islamic history, I held a position of respect as a judge. My life revolved around the tenets of our faith, and I wore the mantle of responsibility with pride. Yet, even amidst the prayers and traditions that defined my existence, I felt an oppressive weight pressing down on me, a silent struggle that churned beneath the surface. The rigid societal structure nurtured reverence for faith but silenced dissent. I found myself torn between my commitment to uphold the law and the gnawing doubts that whispered in my ear. Was I merely a keeper of tradition, or was there a deeper truth waiting to be uncovered? The concerns nagged at me, and despite my attempts to adhere to the expectations placed upon my shoulders, I felt a growing void. I performed my duties with diligence, but the emptiness persisted. The spiritual war within me grew more pronounced, leading me to ponder the notion that perhaps there was a hidden agenda at play. What if the teachings I so faithfully upheld were part of a deception meant to control and manipulate? My heart ached to understand the truth that lay beneath the surface of our beliefs, and I began to yearn for something more profound. One fateful day, the veil of my reality was lifted in an unimaginable way. After a particularly taxing week, I was driving home when a sudden incident thrust me into darkness. I lost consciousness, veering off into a realm I could never have prepared for. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in a stark, barren desert, the sun beating down mercilessly. Feeling disoriented, I wandered, stumbling through the sand until a brilliant light appeared before me, illuminating the oppressive landscape around me. As I approached, the light took shape, revealing itself as Jesus. His presence radiated love and acceptance, dispelling the fears that had held me captive. "Welcome, Khalid," he said, and somehow I felt that this encounter was meant to be. As we stood together, Jesus revealed the hidden truths of my existence. He showed me how our faith, while rich in heritage, had been shaped by human hands with intentions not always aligned with divine love. The spiritual war we faced was larger than personal belief. It was a collective battle against the deceptions that bound us, against the elite who manipulated religion for power and control. I felt the weight of the world lift as revelation after revelation poured into me, witnessing the interconnectedness of our struggles and the potential for awakening that lay dormant within all of us. When I awakened from that experience, the light of Jesus still shone brightly in my memory. But the confusion and sorrow of returning to my life weighed heavily upon me. My thoughts raced as I processed everything I had seen and felt. I was keenly aware that my journey had led to a moment of reckoning, but how could I reconcile these revelations with the life I had lived? My fear of rejection hung over me like a shadow. Would my community see me as a traitor, someone who dared to challenge the very fabric of our beliefs? I felt liberated yet terrified, a clear confrontation between truth and the overwhelming pressure to conform. In the following days, the urgency of sharing what I had learned grew unbearable. I felt an overwhelming responsibility, not just for my awakening, but for those who remained trapped by deception. Every breath I took pushed me closer to the realization that my voice could make a difference. The spiritual war was not only mine to fight, it was for everyone who struggled with doubt, who longed for connection. I began to seek out others who might feel as I did, who could strengthen my resolve as we embarked on this journey of awakening together. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but the promise of truth beckoned me to step forward into the light and share the revelations that had forever changed my life. I am Amir, a judge in Medina, admired for my just decisions and discipline. To the outside world, I've built a respectable life devoted to upholding the law and the tenets of our faith. Yet beneath this facade lies a tumultuous sea of conflict and emptiness. Despite the respect I command from my peers and community, I often feel like I'm trapped in a gilded cage, suffocated by the weight of expectations. Each day, as I don the robes of my office, I sense the lingering doubts whispering in the back of my mind. Am I truly serving justice? Or am I complicit in a system rooted in deception? My life took a sudden turn one fateful evening when a heart-stopping incident left me grappling with my mortality. While driving home from a long day at the courthouse, a car swerved into my lane, and in that split second, everything changed. The impact was catastrophic. I can still remember the pain and the darkness that enveloped me. It felt like falling into a void. In that terrifying moment, as my consciousness slipped away, I was transported into a surreal realm, a barren desert illuminated by a radiant light. And there stood Jesus, radiating warmth and love that seemed to dissolve my fears instantly. "Amir," he said, and I felt my heart soar even as I kneeled before him, engulfed in his luminescence. It was in his presence that I received revelations that would shatter everything I believed. Jesus unveiled to me the hidden truths of our world, the manipulation of faith by the elite, the hidden agenda that determined how we viewed God, and the spiritual war lurking beneath our societal structures. It was a sobering awakening that challenged the core of my existence, laying bare the deception that had kept so many people confined to ignorance. Through my conversation with Jesus, I began to see the interconnectedness of our struggles. I understood that the very doctrines I upheld in my role were often used to perpetuate division, crafting walls instead of bridges among people. The societal conflicts that seemed to rage on the surface were reflections of deeper, underlying issues rooted in fear, misunderstanding, and the desire for control. This revelation ignited a passionate fire within me, urging me to transform my life and to share these truths with others who might still be trapped in darkness. When I awakened, the stark contrast between the light I had encountered and the reality of my daily life was jarring. The weight of my revelations felt heavy, pushing against the familiar confines of my role as a judge. My heart raced with both fear and exhilaration as I grappled with the consequences of my experience. I knew I could no longer remain silent. The call to spread the awakened truth resonated within me like a drumbeat, urging me to speak out against the deception that had long held our society captive. I faced the challenging decision of whether to risk my standing in a community devoted to tradition for the chance to shatter the chains binding others. As I reflected on my encounter with Jesus, I understood that my journey into the unknown was only beginning, and the fight for truth had now become my lifelong mission. During my daily prayers, I often found myself engulfed in a profound sense of emptiness that gnawed at my spirit. As Amir, a judge in Medina, I was respected for my dedication to justice and adherence to our faith. Yet, as I stood there reciting verses with my congregation, I felt a void growing deeper within me, a silent storm brewing beneath the surface of my outward devotion. My heart wrestled with questions that echoed in the recesses of my mind, doubts I couldn't voice aloud. Was my faith merely a mask, a tool of control in a system fraught with deception? The questions lingered, haunting me as I continued to go through the motions of my spiritual obligations. The weight of this internal conflict grew heavier as the days passed. Each prayer meant to be an act of devotion became a reminder of the doubts I faced. I sensed an unspoken barrier between myself and the divine connection I once felt so strongly. The rituals, once soothing, now seemed to constrain me, pushing me further into a spiral of confusion. I began to consider the notion of spiritual freedom, the kind that lies outside the rigid structures that governed my life. It was a concept that sent shivers of excitement through me, but the fear of the unknown made me hesitate. What would it mean to truly embrace this awakening? Would I find solace, or would I be cast out into the desert of unrelenting doubt? That moment of clarity came one fateful night when an accident plunged me into darkness. As I lost consciousness, I was enveloped in an otherworldly realm where time and space felt irrelevant. In this void, a brilliant light appeared before me, and within that light stood Jesus. His presence was both comforting and commanding, and as he called my name, I felt every fear and doubt dissolve into nothingness. "Amir," he said, and his voice resonated within me like a warm embrace. It was here that I began to receive revelations, truths that shattered my previous understanding of faith and opened my eyes to the spiritual war that waged beyond what I could see. In our sacred exchange, Jesus revealed the hidden agenda of the elite, the manipulation of faith to maintain control over the masses and foster division among believers. I witnessed how deception wove its way through history, obscuring the truth and chaining hearts to fear. This spiritual war was not just a personal battle, but a collective struggle for the soul of humanity. I learned that the conflicts we faced, the wars, the divisions, were rooted in this systemic deception, preventing us from uniting under a banner of love and truth. The urgency of my awakening pulsed through me as I realized I had been called to share this message, to help others see the light that I had been privileged to encounter. When I awoke from that transformative experience, the realization of the path before me became undeniable. The emptiness I had felt before was replaced with a burning desire to challenge the confines of the beliefs that had held me captive. I understood the risks involved. My family, my community, everything I had built my life upon now felt at stake. Would those I loved turn their backs on me? The fear of rejection and condemnation loomed large, yet the call to advocate for truth was louder. I felt a fierce resolve to embark on this journey, knowing that my experiences could offer hope to others as they grappled with their own spiritual questions. The awakening was not just for me, it was a mission, a forward push against the darkness that sought to suppress our understanding and connection to something greater. The day of the car accident was like any other, filled with the usual mix of responsibilities and routines that defined my life as a judge in Medina. I had spent hours deliberating on cases, navigating the complex interplay of justice and tradition. Yet, as I drove home that evening, a deep sense of introspection settled over me. I felt an unresolved emptiness, a gnawing feeling that there was something more significant waiting for me, beyond the confines of my current existence. Little did I know that a near-fatal incident was on the horizon, one that would set my life on an entirely new path. When the impact came, a sudden jolt followed by blinding pain, I lost consciousness almost instantly. In what felt like a moment between life and death, I found myself enveloped in darkness. Initially, fear gripped me, but soon it was replaced by a profound sense of solitude, as if I were floating in an endless void. I experienced time as elastic. It warped around me, making it difficult to gauge how long I had been in that state. My heart raced as I realized that I wasn't just suspended in darkness. I was being ushered into an uncharted territory of my soul. And then, in the deep abyss of that darkness, a light emerged, cutting through the void with brilliance. It felt warm and inviting, almost alive. As I approached it, I was overwhelmed with a sense of hope and love. There, in that radiant glow, stood Jesus. His presence was both comforting and commanding. "Amir," he said, his voice reverberating through my very being. I felt tears streaming down my face, not just from fear, but from the release of burdens I didn't even know I was carrying. In that moment, Jesus brought forth revelations, speaking of truths that transcended my understanding of reality. He revealed to me the hidden agenda of the elite, how they distorted our understanding of spirituality to maintain control over the masses. I witnessed the mechanisms of deception that shrouded our society, keeping individuals shackled to false beliefs that prevented them from awakening to their true potential. The threads of a greater spiritual war became clear to me, weaving through history and manifesting in the conflicts that tear our world apart today. This was not merely an awakening for myself. It was a collective struggle against the forces that sought to silence the truth. Each revelation left me breathless, filling my heart with a fierce determination to rise up against the shadows that pervaded our existence. When I awoke in the hospital, the stark reality of my surroundings hit me like a tidal wave. The beeping of machines, the sterile scent of antiseptic, it all felt impossibly mundane compared to the divine encounter I had just experienced. I carried the weight of those revelations back with me. They settled deeply into my spirit, igniting a fire that demanded to be shared. Yet, as I lay there, I began to grapple with the fear of exposing my experiences. Would my family and community accept my transformation, or would they cast me aside as a heretic? The fear of rejection loomed large, but I couldn't shake the sense that my experiences were not only for my awakening, but also for the awakening of others still trapped in the web of deception. Each day brought with it the urgency to act. I felt compelled to share the truth I had witnessed, hoping to inspire those who felt the same sense of emptiness that had once consumed me. I envisioned gathering individuals who sought enlightenment, just as I had, and challenging the very fabric of the narratives that bound us. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, yet the promise of liberation surged through me. The spiritual awakening was underway, and armed with the truths Jesus had revealed, I knew that it was time to confront the spiritual war that extended far beyond my singular experience. I was ready to embrace the calling of sharing these revelations, even if it meant risking everything I had ever known. When I awoke from my encounter with Jesus, the familiar surroundings of my life in Medina felt foreign and constricting. I had crossed a threshold into an awakening that my family and community might never understand. As a respected judge, I had navigated the intricacies of the law with devotion. Yet now I faced immediate ostracism for stepping outside the boundaries of our shared beliefs. Labeling me a heretic became the easiest response for those who felt threatened by the revelations I had received. Guilt weighed heavily on my heart, constantly pulling me back toward the comfort of my old faith, even as the hostility from those I loved surrounded me like a thick fog. In the days that followed, I experienced an emotional storm unlike anything I had ever faced. Each glance from familiar faces felt like a dagger, their disappointment evident in their eyes. The very people who once respected me now turned their backs, and the loneliness clawed at my spirit. I replayed every moment of my encounter with Jesus, the warmth of his light piercing through the darkness of my doubts. It felt transformative, yet the aftermath of that revelation had left me teetering on the edge. Could I truly accept the path laid out before me, knowing that it might lead to total separation from my family and community? Every prayer I attempted felt like a hollow echo. While I recited verses that once brought me solace, the words felt weighted with the burden of my new understanding. I could sense the spiritual war raging within me, a conflict of faith that seemed to manifest in every aspect of my life. The fear of being ridiculed merged with the growing conviction that there was so much more to faith than I had been taught. I began to understand the hidden agenda of the elite, those who manipulated doctrines to perpetuate division and fear among the faithful. As I recalled the revelations I received, the urgency to share these truths consumed me, creating a fire that could not be easily extinguished. In secret, I sought to connect with others who might be wrestling with their own spiritual battles. I reached out to individuals who had also felt the unsettling emptiness I had experienced. Together, we shared our stories of transformation, and in those moments of solidarity, I saw the flicker of hope ignite in each person's eyes. Our conversations often spiraled into discussions about the current state of the world, how technology and media were being used as tools of manipulation by the elite, further entrenching the divides that kept us all fighting among ourselves. I found a sense of purpose in gathering these seekers, knowing that our collective voice could create ripples of change. Yet, despite the newfound camaraderie, the specter of fear persisted. I wrestled with the wave of doubt that threatened to consume me at any moment. What if my journey into this awakening put my loved ones in danger? They were still embedded in a belief system that placed conformity above genuine understanding. Each moment felt like walking a tightrope, balancing my desire for truth against the reality of societal backlash. But as I closed my eyes, I recalled Jesus' promise that love and truth would illuminate the darkness. In that assurance, my resolve deepened. I understood that to remain silent would be a grave disservice not only to myself but to all those still trapped in deception. The call to share my story now felt more urgent than ever, and I was prepared to face whatever came next. As I found myself navigating the murky waters of doubt and confusion, the allure of understanding Jesus began to spark a fire within me. My life had been rooted in the traditions of Islam, a path I had followed faithfully as a respected judge in Medina. Yet, in secret moments alone, I felt the pull of something greater. It began with a simple search on the internet, timid at first, as I sought to explore perspectives that lay beyond my familiar beliefs. I began to read the Bible, consuming every verse with hunger, each word resonating deeply within, stirring a mix of curiosity and fear. The more I uncovered, the clearer the hidden agenda of the elite became. I discovered how history had been manipulated to control the masses, molding narratives to keep us tethered to deception. The truths I encountered were unsettling, revealing the spiritual war waged not only within my own heart, but also across the globe. I watched as technology became a double-edged sword, used both to connect us and to amplify the very divisions that drove us apart. With every passing day, my eagerness to learn intensified, yet so did the fear of what I might discover, and what it could mean for my standing in my community. I felt compelled to seek out others who had traversed similar paths. Eventually, I stumbled upon a small, hidden Christian community that welcomed me with open arms. I was struck by their warmth and acceptance, a stark contrast to the rejection I had faced in the wake of my awakening. Here, I found people who had also contemplated the spiritual implications of their faith, those eager to break free from the constraints of the traditional beliefs that had once confined them. The gatherings resonated with love and shared truths, creating a safe haven where we could discuss the revelations we had received. As I sat with them in humble surroundings, sharing stories and experiences, I felt a profound sense of belonging. With every conversation, we explored the deeper lessons that Jesus had imparted to each of us, discovering our interconnectedness in this spiritual war. I noticed how the narratives of our struggles paralleled one another, reflecting the larger societal issues at play: war, division, and manipulation at the hands of those in power. Together, we began to confront the truths that had long been shrouded in deception, yet I remained acutely aware of the risks associated with my new life. The weight of my choices pressed down on me like a heavy cloak, reminding me of everything I stood to lose, my family, my community, my very identity. I grappled with guilt as the faces of my loved ones flickered in my mind, highlighting the painful reality of my decisions. But as I listened to the stories of my new friends, courage began to replace the fear that had held me captive for so long. I realized that speaking out against the deceptive narratives was not merely my journey. It was a calling to ignite awakening in the hearts of others, challenging the silence that had long pervaded my existence. With an urgent sense of purpose, I prepared to forge ahead, knowing that the truth I had embraced must be shared to inspire others toward liberation. As my doubts grew heavier, I found myself embracing the quiet moments to authentically pray to Jesus. Each whispered prayer felt like a lifeline to someone I had once deemed foreign, yet now seemed to offer a glimmer of hope. I was fearful, constantly haunted by the thought of losing everything I had known, the respect of my community, the love of my family, and the identity I had carefully crafted over the years. The struggle between my newfound faith and loyalty to my previous beliefs felt like a fierce tug-of-war in my heart. Each day was marked by tension, where the pull toward Jesus became increasingly difficult to resist, yet the ties to my traditions weighed heavily on my soul. One night, I made a decision that would change everything. I chose to participate in a clandestine baptism, a moment that held the promise of liberation, but also draped uncertainty around my shoulders like a heavy cloak. I remember feeling nervous as I approached the gathering place, hidden from the prying eyes of those who might judge me. The air was thick with anticipation, and as I stood among others who had also sought this awakening, I felt a mix of fear and an exhilarating sense of belonging. We shared our stories in hushed tones, recounting the experiences that had led us all here, each of us carrying a burden of discovery, yearning to break free from the shackles of deception. As I was submerged in the waters, I felt as if I was washing away the remnants of my old life. I could almost hear Jesus' comforting voice resonating through my mind, reminding me of the truths he had unveiled to me. The baptism marked not just a ritual, but a profound declaration of my commitment to a new path, a path filled with the promise of the truth and the love that had been absent from my life for so long. Emerging from the water, I felt renewed, yet the reality of my choice loomed large, casting a shadow over my spirit. The fear of judgment from my family and community threatened to dampen my exhilaration, whispering doubts into my consciousness. In the days following my baptism, I grappled with the aftermath of my decision. The spiritual war within me intensified, a battle between the beliefs I had clung to for so long and the radical awakening I had experienced. I realized that sharing my testimony would invite both curiosity and backlash. Each encounter with others left me questioning whether my journey would lead to acceptance or outright rejection. Each interaction tinged with the anxiety of facing peers who would see me as a traitor to our traditions, feeling the weight of their expectations pressing down on me like an anchor. Yet, deep inside, I felt an urgent calling to share the truths I had discovered. I couldn't shake the feeling that my revelations were meant for a larger purpose, to inspire others still trapped in the web of the elite's hidden agenda. As I spoke to small gatherings, sharing my experiences and the love that Jesus had poured into my life, I could see the flickers of awakening in their eyes. This spiritual journey, riddled with its challenges, also illuminated the potential for change and transformation. I understood that while I faced an uphill battle, the power of truth could spark not just individual awakenings, but a collective movement against the deception that had kept us all divided for too long. As I prepared to confront whatever lay ahead, I felt the fierce determination to continue this mission burn brightly within me. Realizing that my spiritual transformation was not just a personal revelation but a call to action, I felt compelled to break the silence surrounding the truths I had unearthed. I'm Amir, a judge in Medina, and the world I once believed in began to unravel after that life-changing encounter with Jesus during my near-death experience. The revelations I received struck deep, and I couldn't ignore the urgency pulsating within me. I knew that remaining silent would be a betrayal, not only to myself but to those still bound by the veils of deception masquerading as faith. The decision to speak out was fraught with danger. The weight of potential repercussions loomed large in my mind as I contemplated the hostility I might face from my community. As I roamed the familiar streets of my city, each face I passed became a reminder of the ties I could sever with my words. Friends, family, and colleagues would likely see me as a traitor for challenging the long-held beliefs we had shared. I recalled the teachings that emphasized loyalty to our faith, and I felt the stirrings of anxiety crashing against my resolve to pursue the truth. In the quiet moments of reflection, I thought of my encounters with other seekers. We had gathered in secret, exchanging stories that echoed my own. Tales of awakening from the slumber of complacency, of recognizing the hidden agendas of the elite who manipulated our faith for control. Together we saw our individual struggles as parts of a larger tapestry, intertwined with the spiritual war that raged within our souls and in the world at large. The realization that many others felt the deep pull for truth ignited a compassion in me that further fueled my determination. Through these gatherings, I started to feel a shift occur, not only within me, but among us all. The awakening we sought didn't just illuminate our paths, it created a sense of unity amidst diversity. I could see the potential for change in the conversations that blossomed around me, each discussion urging us further along the road of understanding. With every shared experience, it became increasingly clear that we had a duty to confront the lies that had plagued us for generations. The call to action grew stronger, resonating in my heart, urging me to risk everything for the sake of awakening. As I prepared to step into this brave new world, I felt the tension building within me. The truth I had witnessed was too powerful to be ignored. It demanded to be spoken. I could no longer stay in the shadows, nor could I stand idly by while others suffered under the weight of manipulation. I resolved to become a beacon of light for those still trapped in darkness, to be a voice amidst the cacophony of the spiritual war we were entrenched in. The path ahead was uncertain, but the call of truth surged within me, igniting a fire that refused to be extinguished. Each day, I felt drawn closer to the moment I would unleash my voice and risk everything for the sake of love, truth, and freedom. In a courageous act of liberation, I made the decision to leave my past life behind in Medina. The memories of my life as Amir, the respected judge, felt like chains holding me back. I had witnessed the spiritual war raging both within me and in the world at large, ignited by the revelations I received during my encounter with Jesus. I knew that clinging to my old identity would only lead to further conflict between my heart and the truth that had been unveiled to me. It was time to shed that skin, to assume a new name, one that symbolized my commitment to a new life rooted in Christ. As I moved away from the city that had been my home, every mile felt like a step into freedom, yet a wave of fear washed over me. Would I be able to truly leave behind the expectations that had ruled my life? I worried about what my family would think and whether they would ever understand my journey. The thought of them grappling with the hurt of my departure stung deeply. The very beliefs that had shaped our lives together now felt stifling, marked by a hidden agenda designed to control rather than liberate. Yet despite these fears, I felt an overwhelming determination to sow the seeds of the gospel among those I left behind. Finding a new community where I could freely explore my faith became my primary goal. I sought out Christians who had also felt the pull to awaken from the slumber of conformity. The bonds we formed were grounded in love and a shared understanding of how deep the deception ran. Together, we gathered to pray and share our testimonies, and with each story, I felt the stirring of something powerful, a collective awakening that resonated in my soul. I was no longer alone. I was part of something larger, a movement against the societal norms that had long kept so many in chains. Through these gatherings, we delved into discussions about the spiritual battle we faced as individuals and as a community. I learned to recognize how the elite manipulated narratives to sow division and promote fear, often using our beliefs against us. I began to grasp the impact of technology and media in this elaborate intertwining of deception. The urgency to combat this manipulation became an integral part of my new mission. I felt compelled to advocate for the truth, to share the revelations I had received with anyone willing to listen, even as the shadows of doubt and fear occasionally encroached upon my resolve. As I moved forward in my journey, I clung to a sense of hope, a hope that I could inspire others to question, to explore, and to seek the love and truth that had been obscured from their view. I envisioned a future where the chains of division could be broken, where people could come together in a powerful display of unity, grounded in faith and love. The spiritual war was real, but so was the possibility of awakening and transformation. With each new day, I prepared to step into a world filled with uncertainty yet brimming with promise, ready to face any battle that lay ahead in my quest to forge a path for myself and others toward light and spiritual liberation. Years after that life-altering encounter with Jesus, I found myself in a new city, dedicated to sharing my testimony and embracing a mission that felt both daunting and exhilarating. I am Amir, and the memories of my past still lingered, especially the warmth of the community I had left behind. Yet, with every story I shared, I could see the light of awakening flicker in the eyes of those who listened. My journey wasn't just about my transformation. It became a lifeline for others who yearned to break free from the chains of deception I once felt. Each person's reaction served as a reminder of the spiritual war we are all engaged in. A battle fought not just in our hearts, but for the very essence of truth in our society. Every day I'd gather with those who sought answers. They were men and women from all walks of life, each carrying their burdens of doubt and fear. Many had felt the call to awaken, and together we created a space of acceptance and shared experience. I recounted my near-death experience and the divine revelations I received. Jesus showed me the hidden agenda of the elite, how they used manipulation and fear to control our understanding of faith and the truth. I could see the parallels between our struggles and wider societal issues. Wars waged not just by nations, but within the fabric of our communities, perpetuated by a system that thrived on division rather than unity. Yet, as I became more involved in this mission, I couldn't escape the gnawing feeling of loss for my family. The idea of reconciling with my parents and siblings haunted me. I wondered if they would ever understand the depths of my journey or the convictions that now propelled me forward. I carried guilt with me, a heavy weight for the paths we could have walked together if only they could see the truth that had been revealed to me. I wanted nothing more than to hold them close, yet I felt like I had shattered that connection, stepping too far from the beliefs that once tied us together. Navigating these emotional waters was no easy task. I found solace in the community I had built, yet the sorrow of missing my family never fully receded. There were nights when I would lie awake, grappling with the fear that I was a betrayer in the eyes of those I loved. This internal struggle fueled my resolve to reach out and share my findings. My mission became not just about me. It was about expanding the truth to those who needed to hear it, those who were perhaps in their own prisons of doubt and fear. The urgency of this mission pulsed through me as I stood before groups, speaking about the awakening we desperately needed. I stressed that we had a duty to confront the deception that permeated our lives and the spiritual war that demanded our attention. The light I had encountered revealed the simple yet profound truth that love and unity were the antidotes to the chaos surrounding us. I knew that at great personal risk I had to continue fighting for this cause, advocating for the truth that could liberate not only myself but countless others still caught in a cycle of despair and deception. With each passing moment, I felt the pull of my new identity solidify, a becoming, woven from the threads of the spiritual awakening I had been blessed to embrace. As I reflect on my journey, I can't help but wonder, how many more of us are trapped, wrestling with shadows, feeling the weight of unseen chains? Each day I stand before you, sharing my truth. I'm reminded that this isn't just my story. It's a whisper, a call to all who feel the pull of something greater. We are living in a time of awakening, a time when the veil is being lifted, revealing the greater spiritual war at play. It's a war for our hearts, our souls, our very understanding of truth. The moment I encountered Christ fundamentally altered my perception. I realized we are not alone. There's a larger tapestry woven with our experiences, fears, and hopes. You, watching this right now, are part of that intricate design. The longing you feel, the doubts that gnaw at your spirit, they are not meaningless. They're part of awakening you to a powerful truth that could change everything. Are you ready to confront your shadows, to stand against the deception that seeks to divide us? I urge you to share your own experiences. Have you felt that stirring within? A moment that made you question everything you once believed? Drop your stories in the comments below. Let's create a space where we can support one another in this journey. Your voice matters and could resonate with someone else still seeking their light. And if you feel the truth echoing in your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit that notification bell. Your subscription not only gives you some of the most profound revelations we'll be uncovering together, but also fuels this collective movement toward understanding and healing. Every one of you is vital to this mission, and I need you alongside me as we delve deeper into the truths waiting to be uncovered. In our next video, we'll embark on another incredible journey, one that explores the depths of faith and the resilience of human spirit. I promise you won't want to miss it. I'm Amir, and I thank you for joining me in this quest for truth today. Remember, in this spiritual war, it's love and unity that will guide us toward freedom and enlightenment. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and never lose sight of the light that calls you forward.